I spent my entire life fixing broken engines in a dirty Chicago garage, believing that hard work and honesty were the only keys to success, while the men in expensive suits laughed at my simplicity from their penthouses. Little did I know that the world is not governed by merit but by dark power. One night, while cleaning the basement of an old library in Illinois, I found a leather-bound manuscript that was hidden behind a false wall. It was the forbidden summary of the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, a book so dangerous that it is banned in prisons across the United States. As the freezing wind rattled the windows of my lonely apartment, I began to read the first law, which states to never outshine the master. I realized how many times I had accidentally offended the powerful men of Chicago by showing off my intelligence and making them feel small and inferior. My former boss Sterling used to claim credit for all my technical innovations. I used to argue and correct him in front of the entire board of directors, thinking that truth would protect me from his jealousy and hidden anger. But the law says that a master who feels threatened will destroy you completely. From that moment on, I decided to wear a mask of quiet obedience. I made Sterling feel like he was the genius behind every successful project. I praised his vision while silently gathering the resources for my own empire, because true power prefers to operate from the shadows and not the stage. The second law warned me to never put too much trust in friends. I remembered my old partner Brooks, who betrayed me for a minor promotion. We grew up together in the rough streets of South Chicago and shared everything. But envy is a poison that can dissolve even the deepest bonds of brotherhood. The manuscript explained that friends are the first ones to stab you in the back, because they feel that they deserve what you have just because they know you. It is better to hire a former enemy who has something to prove to you. An enemy will be more loyal because his survival depends on your approval. I watched as the high society circles of Boston crumbled from within. Men trusted their closest allies with secrets that became deadly weapons, while I kept my inner circle empty and my intentions completely invisible, following the third law, which orders us to conceal our true goals from the world. If people know what you are targeting, they will prepare a defense against you. You must lead them down a false trail and talk about things that do not matter. I spent months pretending to be interested in worthless real estate in Texas, while I was secretly buying the controlling interest in a Manhattan bank. Sterling and his lawyers were distracted by my theatrical performance. They laughed at my apparent failures while I closed the trap around them. This is the art of misdirection that the elite use to stay at the top, using words to distract while your actions deliver the final blow. Deep narrative expansion, internal monologue. I sat in my dark office listening to the rain against the glass. The weight of the 48 laws felt like a heavy crown upon my tired head. Was I becoming a monster, or was I finally becoming a king of my own life? The world does not reward the kind, it rewards the disciplined and the bold. I recalled the smell of grease and exhaust from my days as a mechanic, the humiliation of waiting for a paycheck that was never enough to thrive. I vowed that I would never go back to that life of servitude and poverty. The manuscript was my Bible, and power was my only salvation in this cruel city. The fourth law demanded that I always say less than necessary. The more a man speaks, the more common and vulnerable he appears. Powerful individuals intimidate others by being brief and cryptic. Your silence will force your rivals to reveal their own fears and plans. During a critical meeting with the Vance Global shareholders, I remained silent while they argued about profits and quarterly losses. Every time they looked at me for an answer, I simply nodded and waited. Eventually, their anxiety forced them to offer me concessions I never asked for. Silence is a mirror that reflects the weakness of those who talk too much. It creates an aura of authority that cannot be bought with gold or fame. In the boardrooms of NYC, the man who speaks the least is often the owner of the room, while the loudest person is usually just a servant trying to impress his superiors. Sensory immersion, Rule 51. I felt the smooth texture of the antique paper between my rough fingers. The scent of old ink and expensive cigars filled the private lounge. I watched the city lights flicker like diamonds on a black velvet cloth, knowing that each light represented a soul either wielding power or yielding to it. Law number 5 states that so much depends on reputation, so guard it with your life. A strong reputation can win a war before a single shot is even fired. I spent years crafting an image of absolute reliability and ruthless efficiency, until my name alone was enough to make competitors retreat from the market. But if your reputation is stained, then you are vulnerable to every attack. You must be prepared to destroy those who threaten your public standing. I learned to attack the credibility of my enemies before they could speak against me, using the press and the legal system to tarnish their shining armor of lies. Ticking clock, Rule 52. The merger with the Atlantic Shipping Group was only 72 hours away. If I did not master the next 7 laws, I would lose my entire investment. The pressure was a tight band around my chest, but I refused to break under the stress. I poured another glass of whiskey and turned the page to law number 6. Law 6 advises us to court attention at all costs and never be ignored. It is better to be hated and discussed than to be forgotten and unknown. Create an air of mystery that draws people to you like moths to a flame, and never let the world see the full reality of your inner mechanics. I organized a charity gala in Chicago that everyone was talking about for weeks. I arrived late and stayed for only 10 minutes without speaking to the press. This calculated absence made me the center of every rumor and conversation, because notoriety is the fuel that powers the engine of fame and fortune. Narrative conclusion for Part 1. The sun began to rise over the Michigan lake as I finished the first chapter. The janitor who started the night was dead, and a master was born in his place. The 48 laws were now part of my blood, and my very soul was transformed. I was ready to claim my throne and rule the empire that was rightfully mine.